Welcome back to Super Recaps. Today I will recap a romantic fantasy film from 2015 called The Age of Adalin. Watch out for spoilers ahead. The movie begins on the 31st of December, 2014, and we see the main character, Adalin Bowman, buying fake IDs from someone, and then she goes back home and feeds her dog. Her house is loaded with antiques of all kinds. She then opens a box of old films that showcase historical events and eras. She turns on the projector after closing the lights and decides to watch one of the films. We are then shown Adalin's past. She was born on January 1st, 1908, and then later in life, she got married and had a daughter called Fleming. Unfortunately, she became a widow in 1937 when her husband died in a horrific accident while building the Golden Gate Bridge. And 10 months later, while driving, Adalin couldn't see the road because of the snow, and her car fell from a cliff, which led to her death in the icy lake. But then her car was suddenly hit by lightning, and she came back to life. Now, from that point forward, Adalin has stayed 29 years old and has not aged physically. As many years pass by, she tries to justify her unchanged looks by saying she has a healthy routine and luck, but as her daughter, Fleming, grows older while she still stays young, it becomes clear that something is off. One day, she gets pulled over by a cop who confiscates her ID because it shows she is in her late 40s, but he can't believe it as she looks so young. So after that, she resolves to relocate and spends a year researching at a medical school. But even after all the research, she is unable to find a reason for her condition. As she walks out of college one night, she is stopped by two strange FBI agents who push her into their car and tell her that they'll be doing some experiments on her. Once they arrive at a plain sight, Adalin manages to escape while they are occupied with something else. She quickly comes to the realization that she will have to keep running for the remainder of her life. Ever since then, she has changed her name and location and looks to blend with the time and place. All the while, her daughter Fleming ages naturally, and eventually, she starts to look older than Adalin. We are now back to the present, where Adalin goes to a party on New Year's Eve. While walking, she sees a decades-old picture of her with friends. Then she goes to see her friend Regan. Regan is blind and does not know about her youthful appearance, so she teases her about how so many young men are interested in her. Then, Ellis Jones, a handsome man, arrives at the party, and their eyes meet. Sometime later, she decides to leave the party and says bye to Regan. When she gets in the elevator, Ellis Jones rushes and gets in the elevator with her. During the elevator ride, they get to know each other, and Adalin introduces herself as Jennifer, which is her new identity. He then invites her on a date, but she gently rejects him because she doesn't want to fall in love, as her condition will not let her have a normal life with anyone. The following day, Adalin has lunch with her daughter. Fleming wishes her a happy birthday, and they talk and catch up on each other's lives. Later at Adalin's workplace, Ellis drops by and presents her with flower-themed books as a way of giving her flowers. She is charmed by this and agrees to go on a date with him when he asks. The scene then shifts to their date, which takes place in an underground tunnel. As they walk, Ellis tells her about the tunnel's history, which was created during the gold rush, and about an old boat that has been carefully preserved till now. Ellis shares a lot about himself, but when he asks about Adalin, she just replies with, "I have a dog." As their date comes to an end, Adalin thanks him for the pleasant experience and explains that she will be leaving soon. In response, Ellis says that he will tell her a joke, and if it makes her laugh, she will have to go on another date with him. He then proceeds to tell her a very long and bad joke, but it still makes her laugh, so she agrees to another date. The following evening, Adalin adds her new identity as a cosigner to her account and recalls the past when she opened her account after she made a lot of money from an investment. She then goes home to feed her beloved dog, and after doing so, she leaves for her dinner date with Ellis. While listening to jazz, they have a romantic dinner that consists of hot dogs and wine. His unusual choice of food leaves Adalin shocked yet impressed. As the date goes on, he tells her about his father, who became a famous astronomer after discovering a strange comet. Ellis then reveals that he has actually seen Adalin before, and their meeting at the party was no coincidence, and he confesses that he had been interested in her ever since he saw her sitting near the library in a blue dress. They then look at each other lovingly, but Adalin refuses to act on her feeling. The moment passes, and Ellis states that she has still not shared much about herself, but Adalin simply replies that it is better that way. He disagrees with her, and they end up kissing passionately. In the next scene, they wake up after spending the night together, and Adalyn uses her Portuguese skills to help Ellis with some work before leaving. During the taxi ride, she suddenly recalls a similar scene where she saw a man with an engagement ring waiting for her on a bench, but she was scared and asked the taxi driver to continue driving. We are now back in the present, where Adalyn's dog has become unwell. Sadly, the vet informs her that the dog's kidneys are failing, and they will have to put him down. Adalyn spends some time with her dog before returning home alone. At home, she ignores all of Ellis's calls, and instead, she looks at the pictures of her dog and puts them in an album. She is devastated and cries at her misfortune because everyone she has ever loved always leaves her one day. Shortly, Ellis arrives at her apartment after finding her address in the library, but Adalyn is clearly upset and walks away. She later visits her daughter's apartment and looks through old photos of herself. Then, Adalyn tells her daughter that she is sick of always running away and lying. Adalyn also tells her about her relationship with Ellis, and after some encouragement from her daughter, she decides to make some changes to her life. She goes to Ellis's workplace and meets his friend, who helps her arrange a date with Ellis at an old and abandoned drive-in cinema. During the date, she tells Ellis the story as if she herself had experienced it, which she had. They sip wine while gazing at the illuminated ceiling, and Ellis invites her to his parents' 40th anniversary party. She accepts his invitation, but only if she gets to drive. The next scene then shows them on the drive to Ellis's parents' house, and Adalyn is playing around and driving very fast while Ellis hangs on for dear life. On the way, they also pick up Ellis's sister Kiki, who attempts to humiliate her brother and his girlfriend, but Adalyn easily shuts her down with her clever plies. Once they reach, Ellis's mother Kathy greets them, but when his father William appears, he addresses her by her real name Adalyn. She corrects him and claims her name is actually Jenny, but William is startled and says he remembers someone else who looked exactly like her and that they used to be close 50 years ago. Adalyn tries not to cry as she lies and says that Adalyn is actually her mother. She informs William that Adalyn has died, which saddens him. William is still unsettled after everyone has gone to bed, so he drinks a glass of whiskey and thinks about Adalyn. We are now shown flashes of their time together, him helping her start her car, them traveling together, and her telling him her real name despite the fact that she was using an alias at the time. In the morning, they discuss how Adalyn and Ellis met. William brings up her mother and how she spoke so many languages, and Ellis reveals that Adalyn, too, knows many languages. William then begins to praise how Adalyn used to be so intelligent and cultural. His face beams with happiness as he talks about her. His behavior makes Kathy upset because she despises feeling like a second option, but William expresses his love for her and promises her that she is the only one for him. Meanwhile, Adalyn and Ellis take a walk outside, and he apologizes for his father's blabbering. Later in the evening, the family decides to play a trivia game on history in which William has a winning streak of 47. During the game, Adalyn initially pretends she doesn't know the answers, but when Ellis challenges her, she showcases her true knowledge and answers all the questions. This startles the whole family because she even answers questions that are pretty much meant to go unanswered and wins the game. At night, Adalyn is out on a walk when William approaches her. At first, they talk about stars, but then he shifts the subject to how he planned to propose to her mother, but she never showed up. It is revealed that he was the man waiting for her with the engagement ring in her memories. As William is walking away, she informs him that Adalyn loved him as well. Later, when they are planning to go to sleep, Ellis says that although it hasn't been long, he is falling in love with her and could not picture his life without her, but he receives no response from her. The following morning, Adalyn goes on a walk after the rest of the family has gone out, and she stumbles into William. He says she has a ladybug on her hair, and while removing it, he sees a scar on her hand. Adalyn goes away, leaving William unsettled. He then remembers them in the woods where Adalyn had injured her hand. Back to the present, William rushes inside a cabin and discovers a box from 1966. It makes him recall how he stitched Adalyn's hand after the injury. In the old box, he even discovers a picture of them from that day, and this makes him come to a realization. He quickly approaches Adalyn and questions her. He tells her he knows he was the one who stitched her injury and begs her to not lie to him. He simply just wants to hear the truth about how she hasn't aged. She tells him that she doesn't understand her condition either, but she does tell him why she stood him up that day. It was because she was afraid. He urges her to stop running and says that she can live a happy life with Ellis instead. But if she keeps running, she'll never be happy. But Adalyn flees into the woods and goes back to the house. She packs her things in a hurry and leaves a note for Ellis while he is in the bathroom. She then walks out the door with his car keys. William attempts to stop her, but he is unsuccessful. Soon after, Ellis discovers her note, and when he questions his father about it, he refuses to explain anything. Ellis tries to call Adalyn, but she ignores him. Then William hands Ellis the keys to his car and tells him good luck. The scene is back to Adalyn now, and it seems she has had enough of running away because she's been running away her whole life. So she pulls over, calls her daughter, and declares that she wants to stop running away. While she's turning the car around, a truck suddenly crashes into her and drives away. We now see Adalyn's unmoving body on the ground, and for the first time in 78 years, it starts to snow in Sonoma County. And soon, Ellis arrives at the scene and notices his car upside down on the side of the road. He gets out and discovers Adalyn, whose heart is no longer beating. He attempts to save her, but it's of no use. It turns out that Adalyn has finally died at the age of 107. Thankfully, the paramedics soon arrive and apply 750 volts of electricity to Adalyn's chest. She exhales and is quickly taken to the hospital, where the doctor informs Ellis that she has sustained no long-term harm and is incredibly lucky. He then goes to see how she is. While they talk, Ellis believes she left because he confessed his feelings, but she tells him to shut up while crying and kisses him. She also confesses that she loves him too. She now decides to tell him the truth and tells him her actual name and age. Later, when Fleming arrives to see her mother, Adalyn informs her that Ellis now knows that she is her daughter, and despite the revelation, Ellis remains unaffected. A year passes by. Adalyn now has a new dog, and Ellis and Adalyn are about to attend a New Year's Eve party. On her way to the party, Adalyn looks in the mirror and spots gray hair and learns that she is aging once again. This makes her extremely happy. Thanks for watching. To support the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button and press the bell icon to get new video updates.